apologize. So we have an important subject to talk about here. For the next 30 minutes, I want to talk about the Rotary Foundation generally, and then the Sheriff Program, and then Rod Saney is going to be on the agenda, or at least he was. I don't see Rod, but anyway, he's going to be talking about polio and what's going on with polio, which is an amazing story in itself. So we'll stay tuned for that. This is the President-elect's Guide for helping your club do good in the world. Who knows? Who's heard of that term, doing good in the world? Who's heard of that? That is the standard, really, for, I think it is the standard for district grants, is it not? And it really, I think, is a great way to think about what we do in the Rotary Foundation. So one of the ways that as you get kind of know me now, you kind of get it. One of the things I like to do is tell stories. So I'm going to tell you Danny's story. Danny is my son. That's a picture of him last Christmas. So a date sticks in my mind when I tell that story. That's April 15th. Who's a tax accountant? What's April 15th? Right, it's tax day. But it was also this year in our district, it was the day that we were going to have an area governor's meeting. I know it was right here in this facility. I came down here early. Those meetings were in the afternoon. I had a meeting with Jimmy Gorski. Didn't we, Jimmy? Yes, we had it here, yes. And while we came in, everybody was gathered around the TV, and we were watching all these images of bombs that had gone off at the Boston Marathon. The bombs went off at 2:50 that afternoon. And you could just see the pandemonium. And I had gotten a text. My wife had gotten a text earlier in the day from my son that had said, I'm okay. And Linda had no idea, no context for this. She didn't know what that was. So later on, after our AG meeting, I got a call from my wife. It turns out that my son goes to school in Boston. He's graduated now. He goes to Tufts University or went there. And a couple of guys that he lived with ran in the marathon. And a whole troop of his group were actually down at the finish line. And the bombs went off 210 yards apart, those two bombs. My son stood directly in the middle of those two bombs. So 100 yards to either side of him, bombs went off. They were showered with glass and dust. You can just imagine, can't you? The pandemonium, the yelling, the screaming. I don't want to think about the sights he saw down there. So what happened, as you know, they shut down all the transportation, and Danny, along with 4 other kids that were in shock, walked 5 hours back to the Somerville campus of Tufts University that day. And we spoke to him later that night, and it turned out that they were all fine, and they're young kids, and they get over these things. But guess who didn't get over it? His father. I could not get over how close my son came to getting blown up by these 2 young people who had been radicalized. And I kept thinking, this is the second time this has happened to me. How did people get radicalized? What are the forces in the world that would create that type of behavior? Okay? And I want you to think about it. What are the things? How big of an army do we need to protect ourselves from the forces of ignorance, or when things are poverty or hungry? Or hunger. What do we do? What can we do? I know we're in Rotary, but what can we do? So I think about the 6 areas of focus of the Rotary Foundation. And here they are. These are the things that we fund in our foundation. Peace and conflict resolution, disease prevention, maternal and child health care, freshwater literacy, and economic development. And I want you all to know, I can do those without looking. You just have to trust me, because it's something like that. I can do it without looking. But the question is, how relevant is this work? The work we do as Rotarians, how relevant is it? I know we go to breakfast, or we go to lunch, we go to dinner, or we're there to have fun, and we go for the fellowship, and we go for community service. I know the things that we go for. I don't know that we appreciate what it is we do in the world. An army of 1.2 million Rotarians, all dedicated to this proposition of peace through humanitarian programs. Pretty amazing when you think about it. And yeah, Boston Marathon, I think of what went on. I think it's pretty cool.